On 91.7 ABC Coast FM. Brian Tessman with me. He's head of the Queensland Dairy Farmers Organisation. Brian, why do you think Coles struck this new supply deal?
Well, I think Coles have wanted to portray this as a good deal for dairy farmers to give the impression both to the public and to politicians that they're sorting out the issues around the milk price war and the issues that have led to a considerable drop of 3, 4 and even considerably more cents per litre since the milk price war started back at Farm Gate. They're trying to give the impression that they're sorting that out to try and stave off the now move that's gathering strength all the time towards having a mandatory code of conduct and a supermarket ombudsman to see that the prices and deals that are struck all the way down the value chain for our food, and particularly milk in the domestic market in Australia, are fair and equitable. And I think the supermarkets in general are certainly not keen on that happening at all.
Brian, as a consumer, when you go to the back of your local supermarket and you're looking at all the different milk, what should they consider, given that cheap milk looks like it's here to stay for now?
Well, I think they need to consider still, what really maintains the supply of their local milk, and that's the local brands. And those local brands are Paul's, Dairy Farmers and Norco. They're the brands of the local dairy farmers in southeast Queensland, and I think they need to buy those brands, one of those brands, or a brand of one, some of them, quite a number of other smaller suppliers that there are around. Small farm operations that also supply milk into the system. And I think by buying any of those brands, they know that they are supporting the local dairy farmers. Because one thing I think both Murray Goulburn and Norco do realise in all this is that Australia needs to bolster up its milk production, where many parts of Australia are struggling to supply themselves with milk, and then the southern states are really struggling to supply the contracts that they've got overseas. So what we really need to do is sort this domestic situation out so we can get the dairy industry back on a profitable, expanding future.
Okay, what about Woolies and all this? Because Woolworths is Coles' biggest competitor. What would they be doing to counter what Coles has just done?
Well, Woolworths, I think, have got their own plan, and that part of that has been the small, I suppose, experiment that they've had so far in the Sydney area, where they've been signing up suppliers directly, and they're going to contract a processor to process that milk. They're going out and getting a direct contract with those farmers, and they'll expand that, I think, over time. So I think that's another way that the supermarkets are trying to at least look like they're doing something to address some of the farm gate issues. But at the end of the day, of course, what all of that is doing is giving more control of the supermarkets back onto those farmers. And if there's small groups of farmers, like the small group that's at Sydney that have contracted to Woolworths, are out there dealing with such a huge company as Woolworths, the need for a code of conduct and an ombudsman, I think, is greater than ever.
Yeah. All right. Look, thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate you and your views this morning on this new deal that was struck with these cooperatives, that being Murray Goulburn and Norco with Coles. I've also got with me Scenic Rim dairy farmer Greg Dennis. Good morning, Greg.
G'day, Nicole. How are you going?
I'm well. How would farmers be processing the deal that was announced yesterday by Coles?
Well, I guess it depends where you sit and who your milk is currently contracted to. For ourselves personally, I must admit I'm very relieved not to be a part of that landscape, being an ex-Parmalat supplier. I think that the really concerning thing, whenever there's a major win with a contract like this, there's also there's a massive loss for somebody else. So what inevitably happens whenever there's a transfer of milk requirements between major processors is there's a substantial falling between the cracks of farmers that as that slack is taken up, there'll be farmers that won't be able to strike a deal with their existing processor or the new processor looking for milk. So I think it will create more instability in this region rather than stability. And I can't help but be a little bit cynical of the timing of both Coles and Woolies coming out and striking these deals, because they're doing it on the back of the very arrangement and the shortage that they created through the milk war. So it's almost like they sat on it just for long enough to cripple our dairy industry to a point that now they can become the saviour.
And there will be cheap milk. I mean, that's the underlying message here to consumers. Cheap milk here to stay for now because of this new supply deal. Why are they able to continue to sell cheap milk just because of this deal?
Oh, look, I think that they play very well off the struggles that families face, and we know that finances are tight for a lot of families. Unfortunately, their own profits continue to skyrocket. So it's a matter of offering, certain products at a very low price to attract the patronage through the door, but they're shuffling profits onto other lines. So other product lines. They're selling thousands of products. They have the ability to make bigger margins on some while smaller margins on others. I think the really concerning thing is a lack of transparency, and I couldn't help but, if you don't mind, Nicole, I'll just quote a piece out of the Courier Mail this morning from the Coles merchandise director, John Durkin, who said that the company has also negotiated with Lion Nathan and Parmalat, but the advantage with the co-ops, being Murray Goulburn and Norco, was the transparency they could offer in their supply chains. This was difficult for multinational listed companies to replicate. Now, that's what John Durkin said. So he's obviously a big fan of transparency from one side of the fence, but under the Coles umbrella, I guess they would be considered a multinational listed company. So he's admitting that there's a lack of transparency from within Coles. And that's certainly what we've seen, because through the media, you'll often see farmers quoting the price that they're paid for their milk, and they are real figures. There's no hidden agenda there. Farmers are quoting the price they're paid by their processor. But no farmers and no people in the general public, to my knowledge, have ever seen the price that Coles or Woolworths have paid for milk from the processor. So why is there not transparency from their end? I don't understand, and I really think somebody needs to put the pressure on blokes like John Durkin, who thinks transparency is important, and have that figure quoted publicly.
All right, well, that might be a conversation to be had on this program. Greg Dennis, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Nicole.